What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones. And AJ, we're here on the Kenan Stadium turf following North Carolina's 31-13 win over Minnesota. And AJ, this is actually kind of nice. Pretty quiet out here for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is quiet.
We got a little bit of chatter going on.
For the helicopter.
Yeah, we did just wait for a helicopter. We got a little bit of chatter going on, but
I like this. It's good.
Weather's nice. No leaf blowers.
It was cold last night. It was winter last night.
I know. I wish it was cold during the game because that first half was absolutely brutal on the turf. It was about 95 degrees out here, but felt great in the second half. But that's besides the point, AJ. We're here to talk about the win for the Tar Heels, and I think we have to start offensively because that was a big topic of conversation amongst Carolina fans. I know you did a drop on it this week, kind of talking about vertical passing and a lot of that, and maybe not greatly received by certain portions and individuals, which is okay. That's totally fine. But AJ, we saw vertical passing today, and we saw Carolina be pretty dang successful doing it. And Drake Mayo, you like that?
That's a Royism.
I almost said damn, but shout out to Roy Williams with that dang thrown in there. Drake Mayo over 400 passing yards. Yeah. Nate McCullum, I called it his breakout game today, over 160 yards. I believe it was 15 catches, 165 yards. Thought he was absolutely fantastic today. We really saw why Carolina went after him so hard in the portal, but very tough game for Carolina running the ball. They didn't run very well, but they threw the ball great, and they had some really, really big plays down the field, which opened up this Minnesota defense and ultimately led to 31 points on the day. So thoughts on the vertical passing game kind of opening up a little bit today for the Tar Heels?
Yeah, as a longtime former offensive lineman, I love the run game. There's nothing better as a lineman, just run blocking and just mauling some guy.
Need to get you doing some drills down
here. I
here,
love conventional football. I'm a big run game guy. Some people don't understand that. But you've also got a great weapon. And vertical passing is part of the game. It's part of what this team and program is built on. And it was time to see a little bit more of it, and they went to it right away. Now, it's also situational. So you just don't go throw vertically because that's all you do, and you're hell-bent on it. A lot of it depends on what the defense does. I think tonight, Minnesota gave them that opportunity. I asked Nate McCullum why it was working. He said their secondary was a little flat-footed. And they sensed early on that they could get open in the middle of the field, give Drake huge targets, kind of like a good power forward, getting his butt low on the block and giving you a good entry pass target. They were doing that tonight. And also the fact that they needed it because Minnesota was stopping the run. Carolina's only two runs of 10 yards or more were late in the game. And one of them was Drake running for a first down, 12 yards. And one of them was a screen pass that was a run to Armani Hampton because he caught up behind Drake. Drake threw the ball behind him. So technically, that's a run. Those are the two good runs they had. They had a couple of solid runs. But they need to be this. They need to go vertical. Drake needs to throw darts. I think having McCullum back helped. He's a guy that can get open inside, outside. Matt called him Josh Downs tonight. Yeah, that's pretty
nice
good. But he actually broke a few tackles. I mean, he showed the toughness of Josh Downs. He's a little bigger. Broke a couple of tackles at one point to get a first down on a small little pass play. But it was early. You could tell right away they weren't throwing any of that bubble stuff. They weren't throwing that much short stuff. It was open over the middle. They took advantage. Next week, maybe Pitt takes that away and they have to run the ball.
Yeah.
But as I said in the drop, you're not always going to be able to run the ball. Everyone said, well, Omarion is going to go crazy every week. Well, he had 16 carries for 37 yards against South Carolina. So he was back to sort of having another night like that tonight. So you needed Drake. So credit Chip Lindsey and seeing that and going to it. Drake, other than a couple misses and the two picks, he was sensational. He was sensational tonight. And Nate McCullum's a dude. See, now you guys understand why they got him. Every time I've written about him, we talked about him, I always say he had 60 catches last year in 11 games at Georgia Tech. The one game he missed was here. And he did it with three different quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks at Georgia Tech, and none of them were any good.
Yeah.
So he's a quarter of the way to last year's total just in this game. He actually had a catch last week, too. So they got to be good vertically. If they're not good vertically, they have to find other ways to win. I don't know if this team is good enough to win every week in the ACC if they're not very good vertically.
Yeah.
They were very good. They were great vertically tonight.
They were.
So they need to be something like this just about every week moving forward, especially when the opportunities are there.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more on that, AJ.
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Max said at halftime, we shouldn't run again. The pass is there. Everything's there. We shouldn't have to run again. No, they didn't do much in the third quarter, but they didn't have the ball much in the third quarter. Minnesota was kind of doing its thing, but when they had to move, Drake got to moving after that.
Yeah, he did. I remember looking up at one point in the third quarter and being like, there's only like 2 minutes left in this quarter. It's just flown by. It was Minnesota's time of possession was good. They didn't do a ton with it, but
the new clock. We need more plays.
Speeds up the game a little bit for sure.
I agree back on that.
Yeah, can't disagree. Also, Drake May, 400 plus passing. I was mentioning that earlier. Only his second time in his career at Carolina. I believe it was at Wake Forest last year is when he had that. When he threw for over 400 as well. So another big-time game for him. And there's a couple of passes he'd like to have back. Let's not get it twisted because I thought the first interception, but the second one in particular, I don't necessarily know what he was trying to do with that. But, again, you can make some mistakes because he was fantastic today for the most part. So.
Can you imagine throwing for 414 yards and there's a lot to clean up?
Yeah, I know. I think that tells you all you need to know about his talent.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, we definitely will. Real quickly, guys, I do want to give a shout-out to our sponsor on this show, and that is Underdog Fantasy. We're going to talk about them a little bit later on, so stay tuned for that. But big thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this one. Really appreciate them doing that. And, AJ, let's move on to I'll call it complimentary football because we're moving over to the defense in a lot of ways. This obviously has a lot to the defense. But I think one of the criticisms that I've always kind of labeled at this team over the past couple of years, it always felt like when they were struggling in particular, defense might play well one game and the offense would be kind of eh. And then the offense might have a really big game and the defense wouldn't play very well. Feels like today we saw some complimentary football. There was, again, a couple turnovers from North Carolina, from Drake May through the air, but Carolina usually came out on those possessions and stopped Minnesota. And that was a credit to them. Bend, don't break kind of mentality that we saw. Also had a couple forced turnovers as well, which is obviously a big plus for this team because that's something that Mac has harped on since he came in is we don't force enough turnovers. We've seen a little bit of a flip this year when it comes to that so far, and hopefully for a Carolina perspective, that'll continue. So complimentary football today, you know what that allowed, AJ? Allowed Carolina to close this one out relatively comfortably. We had free Tez Walker chants going on in the fourth quarter because the crowd, half the Minnesota crowd had left, even some Carolina fans had left at that point, but it was that kind of festival-like atmosphere here because the game had been over for that point. So I think that is a credit to what this team was able to do, but complimentary football wins games, and we saw that for North Carolina.
That's what I asked Mac about. First question. Asked Mac about it, asked Drake about it. Asked Power Echoes a little bit about that, about what they did defensively. Here's the thing, about where we're standing right now, Minnesota was moving down 21-13. Minnesota had taken control of the third quarter. And you look up and you think, man, Carolina should be up more than this. They kind of gifted some points, and they didn't cash in when they should have. And they're in position to maybe score, make it a 2-point game, 1-point game, kick a field goal, make it a 5-point game. And Armani Chapman gets that interception, which he said he never had an interception in his life, backing up wide open. He said the receiver broke wrong, and the quarterback threw it where the ball should have been, and he's right there. He made the interception. And then after that, their last 4 possessions, Minnesota had 46 yards of offense. In the meantime, the complimentary aspect is that the offense scored 10 points. They moved the ball. They got chunks. They got into the end zone. They first got a field goal, and then they got the touchdown to put them away. That's complimentary football, and as a result, they closed them out. Mac spoke a lot in August about complimentary football and closing teams out, and he cited NC State last year. He cited Georgia Tech. They're up 17-0. They lose. He cited Oregon, 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. They had to do that. So what did they do against South Carolina? They closed them out. Defense got a bunch of stops. They win by 2 touchdowns. Last week, they score 2 touchdowns in overtime. They win in overtime. They get the stop when they needed to. It's closing them out. You get a win in OT, that's closing them out. Yeah. And today was the personification of that. This was a step forward. I know that there are a lot of things you're going to look at on film with defense and say, guys, we got to clean this up. Some of the gap stuff, some of the discipline stuff, some of the containment. They're going to work on all that, and they're going to get a lot better at that stuff. But to have a night where there's a lot to fix and you give up only 13 points and you close the game the way they did, that was huge. That was senior leadership. That was player-led stuff. Max said that he went over to the offense after Armani's interception. Said, okay, you guys got to cash in on this. But he didn't have to say it because Drake and Corey Gaynor were already saying it. Max like, okay, that's cool. I didn't say anything.
Exactly what you want.
And then after they scored the field goal, he goes over to the defense, tell them the same thing. Now you guys going to make it stand up. And he said Cedric Gray's telling him. in a very Cedric Gray-like way.
I believe that.
Which is a wonderful way.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, I could just sit in the stands. The player-led team. He told us all off season. Player-led team. Player-led teams are able to dig in when you have to and make the stops you need to and punch it in when you need to. And they've shown that they can do that through 3 games so far. And that was huge today. That was a high-level pull-away that they did in this game against a solid Big Ten team. That is growth. And by the way, 2 games against SEC and Big Ten teams, 62-30. And shutting them down fourth quarter.
It's pretty impressive, man. And I think we had talked about it during the preview show, but it's like it wasn't the first time since 2011 Carolina's beat 2 Power 5 non-conference opponents in the same season.
Yeah,
so.
and that was Louisville. They're pretty good. That was
yeah.
Petrino's Louisville, and that was Rutgers. And Rutgers were starting to fall off again.
Yeah.
I would say South Carolina, they played with Georgia today.
Yeah, they did.
And Minnesota, they're probably a little bit better, especially now because they're 3-0, and they've got 3 pretty solid wins. There are a lot of teams in the country that they're 3-0 that don't have 3 wins like this. And they get a chance to add to it next week.
Yeah, they do. I want to stay on player-led for a second, AJ, because you talked about how Mac harped on it in the offseason, and I'll one-up you and say Mac's harped on it for 5 years, and you know that. I mean, it's something he's talked about. He's always said that player-led teams are the best teams, and a guy that has a national championship and has appeared in other national championship games and was so good as he was at Texas and North Carolina before, he knows what he's talking about when he says that. And even being on the field, I can sense that in pregame with the guys you mentioned, Cedric Gray, the Corey Gaynors, the Drake Mays. Those are your leaders on this team. And there's other guys out there. It's not just them, and I think that's a huge positive for North Carolina because I feel like that's been missing the past few years in particular as Max tried to kind of get this thing back up going. And we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the year. But the fact that he comes in a press conference and says that and gives you examples of why he's saying that, I think is a massive positive for this team and what they could potentially do this season.
Well, they're an older team.
Yeah.
And there's an old adage inside these circles when you do what I've done for a long time. Young kids want to play, older guys want to win. There are a lot of old guys on this roster. And old guys are going to be a little bit more accepting of player-led teams. And they've got the right guys, too.
Of course.
I mean, Cedric, watching him become a leader has been a treat because last year he was still learning how to get on guys. And you got to get on guys. And there were a couple public occasions in September, and he learned a lot from that. And he's phenomenal. Now, Corey Gaynor, if I'm on this team and Corey Gaynor says you got to do this, I'm going to do that. No questions asked. Trust me.
Yeah.
And Drake just carries so much credibility. And they got a lot of voices. And they got people with a lot of ears that are cool with those voices. You got to have that in order for the voices to work. And they have that.
Yeah, that's a massive positive. Before we move on to the last thing, stay tuned for an ad read, and we'll learn more about Underdog Fantasy coming up right now. I'm very excited to announce our new partnership with Underdog Fantasy. We decided to partner with Underdog because it's the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and it's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Now, Underdog Fantasy has a lot to offer, including their Pick'em game. And in Pick'em, you pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. It's so easy to play. Just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can 20x your money by going 5 for 5. They also have a Best Ball Mania. If you think you know football, definitely need to check this one out. This year's Best Ball Mania has $15 million in total prizes up for grabs, with the winner taking home $3 million. So sign up today with promo code HEAL and get your first deposit doubled by up to $100. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with promo code HEAL, HEEL, to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. You must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms do apply. And if you are concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Back to the show. Big thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this show. Okay, AJ, last thing we're going to talk about, as we always do, what this kind of means for North Carolina. 3-0 through 3 games. Pittsburgh on the road coming up to open up ACC play next Saturday. I believe that's, an 8 p.m. kickoff in Pittsburgh. That followed by that is a bye week for the Tar Heels, and then they're back in Chapel Hill for Syracuse on October 7th, I believe. So some very winnable games coming up for North Carolina. I know Pittsburgh is a tough test. It's always a tough test when you're going up there, especially to open up ACC play. But I think what we've seen from this team is we've seen them get kind of a relatively convincing win against an SEC opponent in the opener. Tough environment, neutral site, a lot of eyes on that game, and I think Carolina came out relatively comfortable. Then last week on this very field right here, they struggle with App State, but they find a way to win in double overtime. You have to take positives away from that. And then tonight, or I should say this afternoon, I'd say they won relatively comfortably again against Minnesota for the reasons we've already talked about in this one. I think there's got to be a lot of confidence with this team. I think there's got to be a lot of belief with where this team is at right now, and 3-0 is exactly what you want, where you want to be right now heading into ACC play. So what do you think this win ultimately means for the Tar Heels and kind of where they are right now in the season?
Win and performance.
That's important.
They got to win, but what was the performance like? I think this was a C+, and I'm not being critical.
I could agree with that.
I'm not being critical. I watching this team today and now seeing them the last 3 weeks, like there's so many areas they can get better. They can get better in the passing game. Other guys getting better as receivers, getting open more. Imagine if the running games pop a little bit with that passing game. I think they can be much more dynamic offensively. They've scored 31, 27, and 31 in regulation so far. I know it's different now. There aren't as many plays, but there are enough plays. There are teams out there scoring 40, 50, 60. So I think they can be a lot more dynamic on offense with both the run game and pass game to complement. We talked about complementary football.
Yeah, of course.
I think defensively, I think you're going to see them get more turnovers. They had a chance to get a few more. Now, I know that Minnesota's quarterback's not very good.
Yeah.
I mean, no disrespect to the kid, but he's not Spencer Rattler.
No.
And he's not most of what they're going to see in the ACC. There's a lot of good, experienced quarterbacks in the league. I still think with adding some of the veterans in the secondary, they did. With Omani Chapman, he started 28 games at Virginia Tech. With Stick Lane finally getting on the field. You know, he missed so much of August, and he didn't come into the summer, so he's trying to catch up, learn the communication and all that. And seeing him get out there and make some plays, and Will Hardy getting back on the field. I think defensively, they're just going to get better and better. They're going to be fresh in the secondary. They've got a lot of guys that have made plays now. I think Chapman making the interception, I'm telling you, that is a huge thing for that locker room.
Of course.
That's a huge thing for him. That's a huge thing for that group, that he made that play, and he stepped up and got a lot of plays and played well tonight. Lane getting down here, too. These guys that are new, sometimes it takes a while to fully mesh and embed, and I think that this team's still doing that. And the more those guys become who they are, because actually I asked Armani when he felt comfortable. He said it was like the second series. He was nervous. This guy's played 2,000 snaps in his career. He was nervous because he was wearing a different uniform. It's in a different home stadium. He's put in the game because Tayon Holloway struggled a little bit, and there was a lot riding on it. And he's got a whole new group of people to impress, and he's taken some time with injuries and other things to sort of fully fit in, and he made it stand up. That just makes everything so much better.
Agreed.
So they did a lot of things today that they could build on, but they left a lot of stuff on the field on both sides of the ball. They should be better against the run. Too many gaping holes. Some of the containment wasn't there. I mean, the soft coverage was kind of there again. They let a lot of short stuff. Maybe that was the plan because the quarterback couldn't go deep. That could be it. And I think offensively, they can be better in the run game. They allowed 2 sacks. Drake had to run some, not too much, but I think this team has a chance to be really good. So a C-plus performance today, what we saw, may have been an A performance 2 years ago for North Carolina. But the bar's higher, the expectations are higher, and they should be. So they're a C-plus now in the middle of September. If they're a B-plus in the middle of October, they're on the right trajectory, and they're going to head into the biggest games, the most difficult games, playing better football. And it's going to take some time, but I think they're going to end up getting in that area, in the B-plus area. Yeah. If they become an A team, remember that show, A-Team?
Yeah, it's good. It's showing your age right there.
I know. If they become a grade A team, then this club's going to win for a while.
Yeah.
They're going to win for a while.
I think for me, that's the biggest takeaway from tonight, because I do agree with you. I think Carolina was I would probably say a C, C+. I would agree with that. And when you look at it, right, 2 interceptions from Drake May, kind of uncharacteristic throw, especially that second one from him. The defense gives up a touchdown right before the halftime break. Not ideal in what you're trying to do. They didn't run the ball really at all.
Because penalties, 2 pass interference.
Exactly. The defense found themselves in instances where they could have got off the field. Like AJ just mentioned, they didn't do it. They didn't run the ball very well.
Biggers with the PI. And Chapman had a pick right in his hands, didn't get it.
Yeah.
Older guys, and those older guys are going to make those mistakes. So everything that they have struggled with at times, I think are fixable, because I think they have the pieces here to fix that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think that there is a weakness on this team where the coaching staff sits up there in the 5th floor and they look at each other and say, guys, we got no answers for this. They got answers for every issue they have.
Yeah, and that's a big positive. So I think if there's anything you take away from tonight, it's the fact that Carolina C+ performance, but again ended up winning very, very comfortably, and it's party-like atmosphere in the fourth quarter here with a half-empty stadium because the game had been over. So AJ, I think Carolina fans should be feeling pretty dang good going in to Game 4. And I think Carolina as a team should be feeling pretty dang good going up to Pittsburgh. So we'll go ahead and wrap this one up here. I should say Carolina getting the 31-13 victory over the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Make sure you keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com for all your coverage from tonight's game. You'll be in Pittsburgh next Saturday.
Fly up Friday evening.
Going solo, I guess.
Going solo.
How you feeling about that?
I like going up there. Anybody, by the way, any Carolina fans who are going up there to the game that have not been there, go walk the concourse at that stadium.
Interesting.
Especially the side that's closest to the river, because it's like the Steelers Museum is on the concourse.
Cool.
It's amazing. Make sure if you go to the game, you walk the concourse, get there early, and check out all that stuff that's on that part of the stadium. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, that is sweet.
If you care about football history, that's a phenomenal place to go.
Right on the river. So I'm interested to see how that atmosphere is, because typically they play on Thursday night. I think it's the first time since 2014 Carolina's played up there on a Saturday or something. The 2014, 2013 or something like that. It's been a long while.
I think Switzer was a freshman.
I think it was. He had a couple punt returns in that game, I believe. I can picture that.
I hope they have a good crowd.
Yeah.
Those Thursday night crowds have been
Yeah.
And they didn't have a great crowd for Cincinnati in their opener. I mean, hey, Pitt, build a stadium near campus. Excavate, clear out, buy houses, build a stadium near campus.
100%.
And get yourself an atmosphere, because it's a wonderful sports town.
Yeah.
And it's a program that's got really, really good tradition. A lot of NFL All-Pros. And I want to see Pitt fill it up all the time and get a great atmosphere.
Yeah, I think you do a home stadium on your campus, you'll fix that problem a whole lot. And again,
but it's hard there. If you've ever been there, it's hard to do that.
I'm sure, especially at a place like Pittsburgh. But again, Carolina heading up there next Saturday, 8 p.m. kickoff. We'll be there. So again, make sure you keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We'll go ahead and head out of here. No disturbances, no helicopters flying over, no leaf blowers, no music being blasted around us. I know there's some noise in the background, but hopefully you don't hear it too much.
Over under when I get out.
Oh, only 8:55, man. That's like 3 o'clock for us. 8:53 right now.
Right after South Carolina. I finished at 6:30. I walked out sooner than that.
So you got, let's see, 9.
I'm going to finish everything here and then leave. So what time do you think I'll walk out?
Well, after midnight, maybe? Or is that too late?
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Somebody gets it right exactly the time. And I'm talking like 11:48, 12:17.
In 10 seconds.
We'll give you 6 months.
Yeah, we'll give you 6 months for free at TarHeelIllustrated.com. And you can sign up, just $8.33 a month. Links in the description below. Appreciate you guys watching. As always, we'll let AJ get to his work. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll tweet when I'm leaving.
Okay, I like that.
Evidence of when it is I'm leaving.
I like that. That's fantastic. But make sure you check out Underdog Fantasy too. Links in the description below. Big thank you again to them for sponsoring this show. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one. Appreciate it.